Hello, I'm Munira O'Donnell, and I am the Food Initiative Lead at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and lucky enough to be moderating this panel this afternoon. When we released our report, The Big Food Redesign, in late 2021, we put a call out to food companies to redesign the way that food is produced. And rather than design food and then bend nature to give us those ingredients, we called on companies to design food for nature to thrive. The circular economy provides a framework for enabling this to happen, and increasingly, we're seeing the role of technology in helping move us to a resilient and thriving food system. So it's really great to have 4 organizations with us today who can talk to us about the role that technology plays in their position in the value chain. So, I'd like to welcome our panel of speakers. I'm going to ask them each to introduce themselves. It's called microphone practice. And we will start with, who's at the end? Jan, start with you.
Hey, I'm Jan Svärd and I'm the CEO of Easy Mining.
And I'm Charles Brand. I'm EVP of Processing Solutions and Equipment for Tetra Pak.
I'm Julia. I'm Economic Development Coordinator of City of São Paulo.
And I'm Brian Munk. And I'm working for Alfa Laval, and I am heading up the sustainability transition in the Food and Water division.
Brilliant. Welcome to you all. So let's kick this off. I'm going to ask each of you to share with us how technology is helping to build a more resilient food system. I know your stories, but I'm pretty sure that people in the audience don't. So let's start off with Julia.
First, I'd like to thank you for the invitation. It's a really big honor to be in COP27, especially talking about our programs in the city of São Paulo. So we were already recognized by Ellen MacArthur Foundation with an award with our program to combat food waste. But today I would like to talk with you about our agriculture program. It's our newest program, and we were trying to improve and increase the agriculture in the city of São Paulo. We know that São Paulo is known as a gray city, but we have almost 30% of our area with a rural zone. So it's very important that we can promote initiatives that can increase the agriculture in the city of São Paulo. We have actually thousands of agricultures in the city, so it's really important that we can promote a strategy that can give them more technical assistance and more spaces to increase their business, and that this is a way we can improve and increase food security. So I think this is a very small resume we can share with you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Next up is Jan.
Thank you. Yes, I'm, as I said, the CEO of Easy Mining. And what we do is that we take care and recover 2 very important nutrients. One is phosphorus and the other one is nitrogen. And you know, nitrogen today is produced as with natural gas and air as the raw materials. So it's become extremely expensive, and it also emits a lot of greenhouse gas when you produce it, but also when you use it. So as in the form of laughing gas. We catch it from a wastewater treatment plant and recycle it in a climate neutral nitrogen product. And I take a chance to say the other one too. So phosphorus. Yeah. So these 2, you know, represents maybe today 50% of all food production. If you don't have them, it actually really goes down with that level. And maybe 40 or maybe 60, but approximately 50. So extremely important. Phosphorus deposits today are very unevenly spread around the globe, and it's a finite raw material. So once you kind of used it, it recycles somewhere else, and then it's spread out. But we also catch this at the wastewater treatment plant and produce an extremely pure phosphorus product that can be used as fertilizer and, if legally possible, also as a feed additive. So very important.
Thank you very much, Jan. Charles, how about you next?
Yeah, so Tetra Pak is in the business of integrated industrial food solutions and packaging. And we supply to the ice cream, alimentary powder, cheese and liquid food industry. We do a lot of things on the equipment side, but I'll talk a bit about circularity in our customers' factories. Some early examples were coconut water. Coconut water actually used to be thrown out. It is now your favorite coconut water that you have in one of our packages. We also have technologies for using the whole soybean. It used to be that you just used the kernel. Now the entire soybean is used with no waste. Brewery spent grains after the brewing process. There are the grains that are left over. These used to be used for animal feeds, for instance. It's a very sensitive product. We now have a technology where we can heat treat it and stabilize it so that it can be used for making plant-based drinks or for the bread industry. And then finally, one very exciting new technology with a startup called Engenzyme. When you're making, for instance, Greek yogurt or cream cheese, there is a byproduct called acid whey, which is a very difficult product to dispose of. That acid whey, when you introduce this special enzyme, turns it into a natural prebiotic fiber, which is very good for your gut and can be used as a natural food ingredient. So a few examples of circularity and eradicating waste out of our customers' production.
Fantastic, thank you. We will definitely come back to that in a second. Last but not least, Brian, share with us how technology is supporting Alfa Laval.
Yeah. What pops up in my mind when I reflect on this is that you need to optimize, you need to challenge the existing, and then partnership. And when walking around, we can see there are thousands of solutions that we can already now implement and drive change with. And if we team up and we continue optimize and challenge, then we can really do a difference. What we have done in Alfa Laval, we have this system we call Rivers. It's just about to be commercialized. And it will actually challenge the way we distribute beer today. So you have your beer product, and then you put it through our system, which is a high pressure, low temperature, reverse osmosis system. And then you get a beer extract out, and you get a lot of clean water that you can circularize and get this circular economy thinking. Then you take this beer extract to your consumer side, either on a pub or a bar or at a local distributor. And here you add the water, and you're not compromising the quality of the beer or the taste of the beer. And again, circular thinking on the water. And of course, when you reduce the volume of the beer, you also reduce the logistics, the carbon footprint. You save money. And imagine if all the 200 billion liters of beers. We try again with this one. Imagine if all 200 billion liters of beer every year is being reduced before being shipped, how much CO2 we can save and how much circularity we can have on water on production side. That's by thinking optimization, by challenge the existing and partnership.
Thank you. I mean, it's really great to hear such different examples of the way technology is now being used to make a more resilient and circular food system. I'm going to come back on to Charles, because you've been talking about ingredient upcycling, and that's one of the 4 key design principles that we're advocating for at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation in terms of circular design for food. So when it comes to upcycling ingredients, what barriers are you encountering in terms of actually scaling the use of upcycled ingredients?
I'd like to touch on three different areas because it all starts with having a business for the upcycled product. And, you know, we talk about taste, we talk about texture, if we're talking food now, and about the cost of the product. And all of those things have got to work for the consumers that they're intended for. Then it's the technology to be able to make the product. And in fact, you have a bit of a sort of tag team between technology and the ability to get this product to the consumer. On the technology side, having that ability to start with the development, go into piloting of a small-scale production, and then industrializing, that is a process that often goes with this first business part that I talked about. The final part, I think, is on the policy side. And here I think we've got to have the policymakers incentivize using food waste or waste from food production to turn it into new things. And I think the more they can help to incentivize, the more it's going to give us a platform for educating consumers and the entire value chain. So those are the three areas.
Excellent. So we've got kind of taste, technology and policy all playing a really big part in how we need to move ingredient upcycling into a mainstream agenda. I want to stick with upcycling for a moment here because your business is all around nutrient upcycling, and you spoke about nitrogen and phosphorus being so important, and phosphorus particularly being finite and what happens if that runs out. Why is this not more mainstream?
Yeah, I think it's mainly, as you say, this is policymakers. They can do both good things and bad things, or nothing. And in the case of phosphorus, actually, Germany has taken the lead, and they legislated already in 2017 and said this is a big problem because we import all our consumption of phosphorus into Germany. 55% from Russia, and then Morocco and other countries. And they say we can't live with this for us food security. So they took a decision that you have to recover phosphorus. So this will be able to cover, if this comes through in 29, 20% of the demand and a bit more. But so they can do positive things. What's also happening, of course, because when you start on a waste, a lot of routes are banned. And so, for example, our product is the purest that you can get. The molecule is the same, calcium phosphate, but it cannot be used in feed because there is an annex and an EU rule or whatever. So here, policymakers need to take a step forward and help out so it actually really works with circular economy. And don't think the old way with the linear system, because the whole legislation is linear today. And it's annexes and extras and what have you to prevent circular economy. This needs to be changed.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think we hear a lot of talk about changing the food system, and so many of those solutions seem to be about tweaking the current linear system. And what you're saying there is exactly what we say, which is actually we need a fundamental transformation of every single part, and that is from the technologies to what kind of ingredients we use and the legislation to then be able to support being able to do that. Moving away just from upcycling for a moment and thinking about how we might unlock some of these technologies. Brian, perhaps I can kind of come to you. What kind of support do we need? What do we need to be able to support increased investment in technologies such as those that we've been hearing about today to be able to advance this transition in the food system?
I think it's a lot about making it transparent what solutions we have available. That will help drive investment, but also work together in different ways in the food chain. We really need to team up in different ways, and also to get innovators, startup companies in. And we in Alfa Laval have taken some responsibility there and created an innovation house in Copenhagen. And we now have around, I think it's more than 20 startups in an environment there. And we believe that it's really key to be in early and team up with startups because when you come to the scale-up exercise, then you need to build it on on knowledge, technology knowledge, and that's where we really can support a fast scale up, and that will also support the decision at the investors if they can see there is a very diverse and knowledgeable support to a ramp up. So yeah.
Fantastic. And Julia, I'll come to you because we've heard a little bit around the role of policy in all of this. And you're here representing a city government. And so I guess my question to you is, what role can cities or national governments play in supporting increased investment into technologies in the space, or in fact, just supporting the increase of using those technologies to enable a transition to a circular food system?
I think maybe our biggest part in this role is to promote dialogue with the private sector and the civil society and academy, and bring opportunities to the small business that so they can increase and promote more circularity in the jobs that are being creating. And I think it's maybe the governance that the public sector can I don't know how to say that, how as a I'm sorry, I forgot the word.
That's okay.
The public sector can bring all these actors, these stakeholders. The stakeholders together, and I think this is the most important. That our biggest responsibility as a municipal government. So we can put all these actors to bringing new opportunities and new changes in the economic development.
Jan, you want to come back on that?
Yeah. I like just to fill in there because I think you're absolutely right. And Brian, you touched upon it as well. You need partnerships because, as like us, we are chemical, we know everything about chemistry and chemicals and things like that. And then you need a decanter in this system, and who's better than Alfa Laval to talk to? And then, so you need also the partnerships with the government who says, we need this. We need these solutions and are ready to take a risk in the beginning to make it grow. So you're exactly right.
Use the microphone.
I'm sorry. The public sector can be responsible for everything. We need to promote these dialogue spaces so we can think together of how we can improve our economic development. So.
It's really great to hear that you're being so positive around the role that the public sector can play. I mean, we've touched on barriers, we've talked about some investment, and each of your organizations works at a very different space in the value chain. There's kind of upcycling end products, there's various different parts in the value chain. So you probably all have a unique perspective on my next question. And that is really, what is needed for a faster transition? So from your perspective and your position in the value chain, what is needed for a faster transition from your perspective? We'll start with you.
Yeah, again, building on this with a partnership, it's about creating. Yeah. But building on this with a partnership, trying to step out of the comfort zone, trying to contact other parts of the supply chain, and also facilitating, opening up and getting new players into the market and not focusing only on capitalizing on the existing. So really try new things.
Thank you. Julia, do you want to go next?
Yes. I think to promote a faster transition, we have to change our cultures. Because I see in Brazil, we still don't have a circular economy culture, and people, I'm ashamed to tell you that, but people still doesn't believe in climate change. So we have to put this in the agenda, especially in Brazil, because we know in the last years we were like not taking care of our nature, and it's our responsibility to make that. So I think this is the most important thing to do.
Great. How about you, Charles?
So it's me next. You know, I think the word waste is interesting. You know, it's got to be turned into the word resource. And if you have a mind shift from waste to resource, it gets you going into doing something with the resource. We all know 1/3 of food is wasted. It's just such a staggering amount. And I heard yesterday that 50% of all tomatoes do not reach the consumer, 50%. So I think we've all got to make sure that we come together and address the topic of waste through to the production, and then ensure that from production through to the consumer there is not waste, and use the available technologies so that we upcycle the waste that is generated and minimize the waste along the whole of the food chain. And that is going to take, and you said, you know, don't just talk about, you know, partnership between the various actors, but it does start with policymakers through to the businesses and educating consumers on the behaviors that they have to take to avoid the waste that they generate.
I love that we really need to change the way that we think about waste, and not think about it as waste at all, but just think about it as somebody else's or another business or another food substances resource. And I agree with you. I think if we could get to the position where we're all thinking that organic waste is food for something else, we'd be in a much better position. But how about you, Jan? Where is action most needed for a faster transition from your perspective?
Yeah, so I couldn't agree with the previous speakers more, but actually behind us here we also have a cycle. So sometimes we shouldn't maybe even talk about upcycling or downcycling or up value chain, or maybe should we value circle or value, you know, instead, so we get the new mindset. And so we really use these resources fully. I think that would be the biggest improvement. And even as something as horrible as the waste in a wastewater treatment plant. You get a sludge, you get a pure water coming out, and the rest is actually a lot of valuable ingredients in there. Phosphorus and nitrogen, but also other things.
No, I agree with you completely. So we've looked at kind of a mindset shift. We've talked about changing our culture. So I guess that's in there with a mindset shift. Definitely something around creating new partnerships and the right partnerships to enable this to happen. So there's, and I like that, not thinking of it as a value chain, but thinking of it as a value circle. Absolutely, it does go round in loops. So I guess you've all given a perspective on where action is most needed. But if we think about, you know, COP is really about how do we enable policymakers to make the right decisions, and what are the kind of policy landscape changes that you would want to see. Where do you think, if I could give you a magic policy wand, and I could say you could have one wish with your policy wand, what would that wish be? We'll go back in the order. So Jan, you first.
Thank you. No, but I think it will be twofold. One, it's a pack of sticks and carrots. So you need to do both. Of course, you need to ban some of the old behavior and say this is not okay. But you also need to incentivize the new types of behaviors and the new ways of using resources. And that should be on the top of the mind of the policymakers.
Really interesting. I heard something very similar to that earlier this morning around kind of the need for a balance between the carrots and the sticks in this space. We do absolutely need those sort of legislative changes that not only help shape what we're going to do, but from listening, talking to businesses, you need to know what that framework looks like to be able to know where you can invest to make those changes, because otherwise you're kind of swimming without any lanes, really. So,
just add one more thing there, and then saying that, you know, the fossil industry and everything around it has developed for more than 100 years. They have optimized their processes bit by bit, and to think that that new way of thinking and new raw material base will do the same in 1 or 2 years is naive. So that's why you also need the carrots. It will take some years to catch up, and then I'm sure it's going to bypass, and also the bans and sticks.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, actually, I'd just like to add on to that, because this topic of speed. This topic of speed, I had to be uncomfortably close. Yeah. This this topic of speed is so important. You know, other industries prior to what we're talking about today have had decades, and now we want to make systemic changes in years, and that is a risk because industrializing technologies takes time. And we don't want unintended consequences with industrializing something that goes too fast and we end up having to change because we didn't understand something. So that's a very important point.
Thank you.
I think just to complete the other question, we have in São Paulo a concern to promote a transformation of waste disposal. So I think if I have a wand, I would like to use that so we can see the waste disposal in a different way, so we can bring another opportunities for this waste disposal and transforming money and in business in opportunity. And I think this is right now with all the consume we have. This is a very important thing we have to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to build on what you said, Jan. Because in the energy sector, there is a lot of incentives to do transformation. And if we can get that into the food sector, so it becomes an obvious choice to make a good business case instead of, and make it maybe costly to dump waste instead of creating a new feed of food for the supply chain.
That's right. I mean, I love the way that you kind of connect that to the energy sector and how, and I think we were talking about it earlier, and you're saying you come here and it's, it's still very energy focused. I guess there's a lead-on question, like, what are more of those incentives for the food sector? Because they seem quite clear in the energy sector, and we know that the energy sector is going to, help be responsible for 55% of our climate challenge. But then the way that we eat things, the way we grow things, and the way we use products is the other 45%. So what are those? Are there any incentives that you've seen in that space that you think could translate over? Or what are the incentives that you would like to see? I mean, you've talked about making dumping more expensive, but is there anything else out there that you think actually could be quite catalytic?
Yeah, so I mean, my policy wand was actually about that, because I think policy has got to recognize the unacceptability of the levels of food waste that we have. There's the stick. Yeah. The carrot is actually incentivizing the technologies that are going to reduce food waste, either by upcycling or by avoiding food waste. And I think those two things have got to be built into the policy today.
Anybody else like to add to that?
Yeah, maybe one thing, this about also the perspective of waste. Wastewater, see that as water as a resource instead of waste, and maybe do some regulation there. Not on the water side, but on the waste dumping side.
Yeah, I just wanted to build a little bit on what you said also, because I think the way a lot of things are bought by municipalities and other, they have one item in there and it's cost. And they compare apples with pears because, if you have a high quality or low quality, and it's cost. So these tender processes that's going on, probably also in Sao Paulo, and they compare things that is not the same. And that would also be a wand I would try to use.
What we're doing here is very important. We're sharing our best practices, but I think maybe the most important part of the COP27 is what we're doing when we're going back to our cities, to our countries, and how we transform these partnerships in real public policies. So maybe this is the most important part of what we're doing here.
I couldn't agree with you more. It almost make that. You know what I'm going to ask you. So I'm going to lead on from that, and I'm going to say, okay, just before we wrap up, what are you going to do differently as a result of being on this panel, being in other panels, from what you've heard today, over the last couple of weeks? Have you come across anything that you think man, that's really helpful or useful, and I'm gonna implement that.
Okay, so I'll give you a challenge because we need money to implement all these policies. So I think the most important part here is what we gained our financial partnership, so we can improve our public policies of green economy, of circular economy, and all the things like that. So we can promote more jobs that are thinking of our future and things like that, you know.
And I don't think we want to do anything different. I think we want to continue pushing because the transformation is starting, and it's about continue pushing.
Okay.
There is a bit of a convergence now between sustainability and sustainable thinking and economic sense. When we talk about certain technologies for energy savings, for instance, even 18 months ago, it was those that were in the forefront of sustainability that were actually investing. Today, with energy costs the way that they are, there's a lot of new thinking coming in. And I think that, together with the awareness that consumers have, climate change, all the things around us, it is creating a change that I think is going to be self-sustaining.
Fabulous. Any last words from you, Jan?
No, but I agree with this. I'm more hopeful than I was before because I also see, as I said to somebody else before, that business people are also people. And of course we want to make money and we want to create, but we also want to be good about the things we do. I think you see this coming more and more. You see business leaders saying we need to have a higher cost of carbon. Wouldn't have happened 5 years ago. This is all over the place. And so for me, it's really this catch up by the legislators. That's the big thing.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's kind of it. And I think I really enjoyed hearing you all share how technology is being used to advance a circular food system. I think we've been quite clear on some of the asks. We need to have mindset shifts around waste being a resource, not waste. We need cultural change to be able to really kind of scale this agenda. And I like what you were saying about actually this isn't about doing things different, it's about doing what we're doing now, but really actually making it fly. And I think in all the panels that I've been into, I don't know about anybody else, we hear a lot about scale and action, and it does certainly feel like with stories like yours and the companies that you work for, we're in a really great place to be properly pushing forward to take the food system into a place where we are actually designing food for nature to thrive. So thank you very much for joining me today, and let's thank the panelists in the usual way.